Hello and welcome to ONTV Fantasy Football League. I'm Joe Johnson, the commissioner, and also the team owner of the Hollywood Blockbusters. And I'm joined here with one of my fellow owners, John Atwater, who is the owner of Smoke on the Atwater. Love that name. And so what we're going to do, well, last week we did a fantasy football draft. We had 8 guys in here drafting their team. And this past weekend was week 1 of the NFL season. So John and I are going to take a look back at week 1, and a little bit later on we're going to make some predictions and look ahead to week 2. So, John, did you have a chance to watch much football this weekend?
I didn't. I watched the Lions game and then a little bit of Monday Night Football with the Redskins and Steelers, but the Lions. It's a crazy game.
Yeah, if you had to pick one game to watch this weekend, that was a good one. You know, for a moment there, even though Stafford and the Lions looked pretty good, when it got to the end, when Prater missed that extra point, and then the Colts came back to score and kick their extra point to go ahead by 1, the immediate reaction was same old Lions. And little did we know that Stafford would get the ball back, march down the field, and set the Lions up for the game-winning field goal. That was very, very impressive to me.
Yeah, with 30 seconds or something similar, no less. I thought it was going to be a similar game to last year's first game of the season where they dominated the first half and then lost it in the second and lost consecutive games after that.
Yeah.
But Stafford, I think, showed great leadership, getting on his receivers about getting out of bounds and playing smart, using their heads and driving down the field and giving Prater chance at redemption.
Yeah, and it's not something we're used to as Lions fans. So, all right, enough about the Lions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the results of our fantasy football scores over the weekend. We'll start with the top game that you see there, featuring Valhalla, the Thrashers, and my Hollywood Blockbusters team. I am absolutely devastated to say that I scored the lowest amount of points in week 1. Let's open up the box score and take a look at how things went.
What's going on with your tight ends here? Because both teams, tight ends scored nothing, but the Valhalla tight end here, Fleener, he actually had a reception, but you did not.
It was, yeah. Overall, I think it was a very weak week for tight ends across the league. I think the tight end that had the best performance was, and his name is escaping me, but he's with the Colts, I believe. I think he had 2 touchdown receptions or something like that. But overall, tight ends underperformed in week 1. And as you can see in the box score from this game, the guy that I was really excited about drafting, Gary Barnidge, got a big fat goose egg. There was no injuries to report on. He just didn't seem to connect with RG3, who eventually ended up getting hurt in that game. And same thing with Kobe Fleener, who used to be a Colt. He went over to New Orleans. Drew Brees had an amazing game, and Kobe Fleener did not benefit from that. That's really shocking. So my stud of the game was Eli Manning, who I seem to be the only one who is a fan of Eli. He scored 25 points for me, threw 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately for me, none of those touchdowns went to Odell Beckham Jr., who I consider my big money guy. As you can see there, Odell Beckham only scored 7 points. He had some receptions, some yardage, but was kept out of the end zone. He was actually outscored by rookie Sterling Shepard, and Victor Cruz came back in his first game in more than a year, almost 2 years, and scored a touchdown as well. So I don't think that's a sign of things to come for Odell Beckham. I think he's going to continue to produce. He just, I guess Eli has so many options that if they're going to double team and triple team Odell Beckham, Victor Cruz and Sterling Shepard's going to step up. So very impressive performance by Manning and the Giants, who defeated the Cowboys in week 1. My dud of the game, we touched on that, was Gary Barnidge. I did not expect a big 0, and I have to start thinking about a possible back end or a backup replacement for my tight end position, because I don't know. They're going to be going through a quarterback change over in Cleveland, and the experts say that Barnidge may benefit from a quarterback change. So I may leave him in the lineup one more time in week 2 to see what happens. But if he doesn't produce anytime soon, I might have to find a backup tight end. Over on the Valhalla team, Ian Locke, who is pretty much a newbie when it comes to fantasy football,
he was.
Basically spanked me. I consider that beginner's luck. He has a couple of studs. Aaron Rodgers, even though he didn't throw for a ton of yards, Rodgers had 199 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns, but he managed to produce 28 points. And then on Monday night, the first of 2 Monday night games, the Pittsburgh Steelers looked very good in defeating the Redskins. And D'Angelo Williams, who was forced into the starting role because Le'Veon Bell missed the first game. I think he was hospitalized or something like that.
No, he was on suspension for
he was
missing a drug test.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So D'Angelo Williams steps into the starting role and has a monster game, 2 touchdowns, and produces 28 points in that Monday night game. It was just really impressive, and much to my disappointment. He also got nice production from Larry Fitzgerald with the Cardinals. That guy just never seems to age. He always seems to produce. All right, let's go on to the next game. And let's look at Team Velez and the Phoenix Flaming King.
For all of the smack talk that the Taramino brothers were talking at the draft, they got spanked.
Yeah, they didn't put the money where their mouth was, and they both ended up with losses. Joe Velez, who was great to see again at the draft, he produced 112 points to the Phoenix Flaming Kings' 96 points. Velez's stud of the game is someone we touched on a little bit. Matt Stafford produced 35 points with 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. A very impressive performance from Matt Stafford. And the thing that makes it most shocking is the fact that he no longer has Megatron to throw the ball to. So now he's thrown into all different people. I think I heard early in the game that he had involved 8 different players in the offense early in the game. The running backs played well, the receivers played well, the tight ends played well, and Matt Stafford led the Lions down the field for that game-winning drive that allowed Prater to win the game. So 35 points from Matt Stafford and the Lions win was really, really impressive. He got 18 points from David Johnson, 15 points from Tampa Bay wide receiver Mike Evans. Velez's dud of the game, based on potential versus performance, was Demaryius Thomas of the Denver Broncos. I was down on Demaryius Thomas on draft day. I think he's starting to show his age. I don't think he's producing the way he used to produce. I see on the screen that he's listed as questionable. I don't know if that came up before week 1 or if he sustained an injury during the week 1 game. But he definitely underperformed. He's not catching passes from Manning anymore. He's got a new quarterback under center. So Demaryius Thomas produced 4 points, which was pretty disappointing when you consider what Demaryius Thomas used to do. Over on the other side of the ball, we have the Phoenix Flaming King, and their stud of the game was Derek Carr, Oakland Raiders quarterback. That was the other great game on Sunday. The Raiders took on the Saints, and it was a shootout. It went back and forth. Breeze threw a 98-yard touchdown pass to Cook. I think it was the longest touchdown pass for a touchdown in Saints history. And Derek Carr kept fighting and fighting and fighting. And at the end of the game, when the Raiders scored a touchdown to pull to within 1, the Raiders could have kicked an extra point to tie it. Instead, they went for the 2-point conversion. It was absolutely amazing. They scored the 2-point conversion, took the lead, and won the game. Very impressive win for Derek Carr and the Oakland Raiders over the New Orleans Saints. Kings dud of the game, and this kind of makes me smile a little bit. Des Bryant got a big fat goose egg.
Wannabe Megatron.
Wannabe Megatron. I've never been a fan of Des Bryant or the Cowboys. During the game, Des Bryant did catch a touchdown pass, but he bobbled it in the end zone. The refs took a look at it, determined that he never had control over it, and reversed the touchdown, taking that away from Des Bryant, which made me a little giddy watching that. So fans of Des Bryant, if you had him in your starting lineup, you got a big fat 0 from him in week 1. They also King's team here also had A.J. Green with the Cincinnati Bengals, who continues to produce year in, year out. 24 points from A.J. Green, another impressive performance, and he's definitely going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 back as the season wears on. All right, let's jump ahead to the next game. I'm not even sure how to pronounce this one team's name. King. How do you pronounce that?
King Kaloje Ant.
King Kaloje. Do you know the origin of that team name?
Kaloje is the gentleman that was helping him at the draft.
Oh,
that is his last name.
I did not get it.
I don't know where King comes into it, but Ant is Anthony, and Kaloje is his partner in crime.
So King Kaloje Ant versus Team Witherspoon. Team Witherspoon came out on top with a whopping 134 points. It was the most points by a team in our league in week 1. And the ironic thing about that is that he was late to the draft. Mm-hmm. His first pick, I believe, was an auto draft pick. It was Julio Jones.
It was.
And then later in the draft, something went wrong. He got another auto draft pick. And yet, when the final scores are in, he outscores everybody in the league. That's just the way it goes. So Witherspoon's stud of the game was Drew Brees. We talked about that game against the Raiders. Drew Brees had 42 points with 423 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. You cannot get much better production from a quarterback than the performance that Drew Brees had, and it's shocking that he ended up losing that game. How do you put up 34 points on the board, 4 touchdowns, and lose that football game?
It's when you don't have your defense helping you out.
Exactly. And so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and fix that defense over there. So that was Witherspoon's stud of the game. He also got 27 points from Saints receiver Brandon Cooks, is the one that was the recipient of that 98-yard touchdown pass, and that resulted in 27 points for Brandon Cooks. And then Theo Riddick, we touched on him a little bit earlier. What an amazing performance from Riddick. A rushing touchdown, a catching touchdown, and he produced 22 points in that impressive performance against the Colts.
See, a lot of people think he got the Lions overpaid for him recently because they just re-signed him and kept him with the Lions. But I think he really showed his true potential with the Lions this year and what he can do and what he's capable of when there's a hole for him and when he can make a cut and make a run.
Yeah, he made some impressive cuts. Let's hope he stays healthy throughout the season. And Lions, if they can continue to produce like they did, and with the passing and the running game, and their defense obviously needs work. They gave up a ton of points. They gave up, 35 points in that game. So let's cross our fingers, hope everybody stays healthy, and we'll see what they continue to do the rest of the season. On the other side of the ball, King Kaloje, their stud was Andrew Luck, who was on the losing end of that Colts-Lions game. Again, Luck, who was one of the top points producers of the week, he produced 47 points with 385 yards passing and 4 touchdowns as well. So when you put up those kind of numbers and lose the football game, I don't know what you got to do. The defense, the Colts defense, they need to hang their heads in shame and figure out what they need to do. And if they don't fix their problem, then just about any team facing the Colts over the next several weeks are going to put up some points on the board.
I think it's defense and coaching. It was poor coaching at the end of the game to give Detroit 30-some-odd seconds left in the game to have that potential to drive down and kick a field goal to win it.
Clock management is such a big part of the game. You see it happen not only in the NFL, but in college ball. You got to keep an eye on the clock. You got to manage that clock, and you can't give the opposing quarterback too much time to march down the field and put them in a position to win the game. As far as King Kaloje, not too many impressive performances on the other side of the ball. If I had to pick one dud, from his roster among the many duds. I'm going to have to go with Todd Gurley. I have Todd Gurley in some of my other leagues. Big expectations. I thought he had a good matchup on Monday night, but the LA Rams looked god-awful, looked absolutely terrible. They were not able to get on the board at all. They were kept out of the end zone by the 49ers. Gurley had nowhere to go. Every time he seemed to have the ball, he'd just run into a mass of bodies and not gain any yardage. I think his biggest play of the night was an unsportsman conduct penalty where he flipped a ball at a defender and got penalized for unsportsmanlike conduct, and that was a 15-yard penalty. I think that was his biggest play of the night, which is unfortunate. So yeah, I think the one of the biggest duds of Week 1 was Todd Gurley's performance on that late Monday Night Football game on ESPN. All right, let's take a look at the last game.
My game.
Your game, the closest game of the week.
Now, before we go into the studs and duds, let me just tell you, going into the last game, we each had one person left to play, and I was winning by 10 points. So that just shows you how much one player can impact a game, being the last player.
Yeah. So Team Irish Brogues came out on top, 108-100. His stud of the game was the gentleman you were just talking about, Antonio Brown. Another irony was that Kevin McCormick, who owns the Team Irish Brogues, was late to the draft.
He was.
His first pick, which was the first pick of the draft, was auto-picked. It was Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown turned out to be the game-winning difference in your game.
Unfortunately.
That's fantasy football. Antonio Brown produced 24 points. He had 8 receptions for 126 yards, 2 touchdowns to give his team the winning edge. His dud of the game, I think if I had to pick one, would be Thomas Rawls of the Seattle Seahawks. He was outplayed by Christian Michaels, who had more carries and double the yardage. Neither running back got into the end zone, but Thomas Rawls, I think most people expected more from Rawls against Miami, and it was just a really weak performance overall. We're going to see if, I don't know if an injury played a role or what the deal is, but let's see if we can come back in Week 2. And then smoke on the Atwater on the losing end of this battle. Your stud of the game was Cam Newton. Was that your first pick of the draft? Cam Newton was your first pick, right?
I think he was, actually.
Yeah, I think he was your first pick of the draft.
He was my first pick, and I'm actually a little disappointed in the way he played, but I can't blame him for how many hits to the head he took in that game, and supposedly does not have a concussion.
Well, the first thing that it bothers me about that, watching highlights from that game, was seeing the helmet-to-helmet contact that he received and not getting a flag from the referees. And the one time they did throw a flag on helmet-to-helmet, Cam Newton had thrown the ball and it fell short of the line of scrimmage. So they called a penalty on that, intentional grounding, which offset the helmet-to-helmet. So there was, when you look at it, really there were no penalties for the helmet-to-helmet contact on Cam Newton, which really shocks the heck out of me because I thought the NFL was cracking down on that kind of behavior. They're concerned about concussions, they're concerned about injuries to players, especially the quarterback, yet the referees allowed Cam Newton to take hit after hit after hit in the helmet. And next thing you know, he's sitting on the sidelines flossing his teeth and thinking, okay? Is he all right? So, yeah, we're going to have to see if anything comes of that. But he was your leading scorer. He had 1 rushing touchdown, 1 receiving touchdown. Your dud of the game, I think we'll have to go with your tight end as well. Like I said, overall, tight ends underperformed in Week 1, and Jordan Reed only produced 6 points. I expected a lot more from Jordan Reed. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do. Like you said, tight ends were just not either getting the touches or not making the catches or just underperforming in general. Something about this week in tight ends just didn't seem to flow together. Yeah.
Now, I'm in one league that doesn't require a tight end, and I do not draft tight ends in that league. I have no interest in tight ends if I'm not forced to start one. The other 2 leagues that I'm in, including this league, you're required to start a tight end, so you try to get the best one you can, but really, performances from tight ends are up and down. You never know what you're going to get. So, All right, so that wraps up the look back at Week 1 here in the ONTV Fantasy Football League. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to look ahead to the games of Week 2. Be right back after this. Load up the family and head on out to Friendship Park for a good old time in Orion Township's Barn Days on Saturday, September 17th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Kick off the fall season with a hay wagon ride, pony rides, a petting zoo, carnival games, a bounce house, and more. That's Barn Days on Saturday, September 17th. The cost is $5 per carload. For more information, call 248-391-0304, extension 305, or visit oriontownship.org. Welcome back to ONTV Fantasy Football League. I'm Joe Johnson, along with John Atwater, and we just looked back at Week 1. We're going to look ahead to Week 2. The first game on the slate of games in Week 2 is a Thursday night game between the Jets and the Bills. I believe I have one player that'll be playing in the Thursday night game, but I don't think I'm going to put him in my starting lineup. I have Sammy Watkins, who didn't perform very well in Week 1, and apparently he's dealing with some sort of nagging foot injury. There was talk of him not performing on Thursday, but he insisted that he's good to go, and apparently his coaches and trainers agree, and he is going to play in that Thursday night game. But I have a feeling I'm going to put him on my bench and find someone else to start in his place. On the Jets side of the ball, a player that I continue to be impressed with is Eric Decker. He had another decent performance in Week 1, and he'll continue to shine, I think, in Week 2.
I have running back Matt Forte. I'm hoping that he comes out and has a better game than he did before.
You're going to leave him in the lineup?
I'm going to leave him in the lineup. We're going to see. He's projected at 11 points, which I think if you can get at least 10 out of your running back, it's decent.
All right. Let's take a look at some of these other games here. Your Cam Newton is going up against the 49ers. They were tough on the Rams. I don't know if that's a good indicator of how tough their defense is. Any thoughts on what Cam Newton's going to do against the Niners?
Well, I think the officiating is going to be a little bit more strict in this game. I think after the blatant missed calls to Cam Newton's head, that they're going to be looking for it and going to be focused on protecting not only Cam, but San Francisco's quarterback and vulnerable players as well. So I think that officiating will play a larger role in this game, just to try and make up for Week 1.
All right, I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit on this Week 2 schedule. One team that gave up a ton of points was the Colts. They gave up a ton of points to Lions in Week 1. This week they're facing the Broncos. So if you have any Broncos players, from C.J. Anderson to the wide receivers to the quarterback, I would start just about any Broncos player you have. There's a good potential for a lot of points from the Denver Broncos against that Colts team. Now, obviously, in that Colts-Lions game, the Lions gave up a ton of points too, which makes me concerned. They're facing the Tennessee Titans. So if you have any players on the Tennessee Titans squad, like Marcus Mariota or somebody like that, I would definitely consider giving them the start against the Lions. The Lions are capable of putting up a lot of points, but they're also giving up a ton of points as well. Who else gave major points up? The Raiders gave up a ton of points. Who are they playing this week? Let's see. Where's the Oakland Raiders on here? Why am I not? Oh, there they are. They're playing the Falcons. So, based on the performance of Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints on Sunday, the Falcons could have a monster game in Week 2. So if you have Falcons quarterback, if you have any other running backs, Julio Jones could put up huge numbers in Week 2 against the Raiders. I would definitely consider starting any of your Falcons. And then finally, the New Orleans Saints in that game against the Raiders, they gave up a lot of points too. And it's going to be up to Drew Brees to try to outscore whoever they're playing against. In Week 2, they're going to be playing my favorite team, the New York Giants. And so I'm expecting the New York Giants to have a monster Week 2. Eli Manning has an incredible contingent of wide receivers. Odell Beckham, the rookie Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz seems to be back and healthy. I expect the Giants to put up huge numbers in a shootout against the Saints. As a matter of fact, that game is going to be fun to watch. I think it's just going to be pitch and catch in week 2. So that's our advice for week 2. Start any of those players that you have from the teams that we mentioned. And I'm looking forward to sitting down on Sunday and watching the Red Zone channel. That's my thing to do on Sunday. Where do you think you're going to find yourself this weekend?
I'll find myself on the couch flipping between the games.
There you go.
Saturday between college and Sunday between pros.
All right, so you have our predictions for week 2, and we'll be back next week, Tuesday at 6:30, to report on the results of week 2 and look ahead to week 3, and we will see you then. Thanks for watching. Good night.